I'm going to get started here officially. I am Dave Rosendahl. We partner closely with the Best Postcards and Drew and his team in many, many areas. And I'm excited to be here with you today. If I cough or sneeze or make any weird sounds, it's because I'm on day 3 of fighting the coronavirus here. So forgive me. All things considered, it's going pretty well, but I do have a couple of symptoms here that you might hear from time to time. So forgive me for that. This is a session that we gather on a regular basis. And the reason for this gathering is that not only do we want to help you drive more results from the marketing that we're doing for you, not only do we want to help you learn new things from your peers, but really for Drew and his team at the Best Postcards, this is about building an ecosystem, a support system, a network of friends and colleagues who can come together to help drive this industry forward, help drive our businesses forward. So this is a really unique angle to what Drew and the team are bringing, and it's my job, my hope, to be able to foster that kind of conversation and that kind of community here within the Mastermind discussions. And the goal is to help everybody learn together as we go through this process today. All right, so folks, I don't think we need to introduce Drew, but I am going to do that here in just a moment. We're going to introduce to you the panel, starting with Andrew Ettinger, our CEO. I don't think he needs an introduction, but Drew, how are you doing, man? Say hello to everybody.
Hey guys, I appreciate you all coming aboard. I too have been dealing with COVID and kind of like the after effects of it, the fatigue that's kind of like set in. So if I haven't been as active with a lot of people in the last couple of weeks, I apologize, but I'm hoping that this is the last week and I'll be back on my game. I appreciate all the new people that have come in, some, obviously the mainstays, and because I think I'll be more active towards the beginning of this and towards the end. There was, and I know Josh, please. I know Ash is going to be going over the artwork, but there's something that I guess I'm looking to teach everyone or impart some sort of wisdom with everybody. And I find myself lately finding that I'm learning a lot from you guys than just getting on. And my attitude in general has changed, where I would normally come and speak to everybody, and this call would be about attribution and matchback reports and all these things that we do. And these are all good reports. They're good reports for you, for your own edification. But the fact is there is no way to give attribution. There is no way for me to tell someone that mail hit up on a certain day and the next day that the person called that the mail is responsible for it, because you have 4 other mediums, and it's pay-per-click, or it's your billboards, or it's a referral, or, and I want to thank, I always thank Lou and Tom for pointing this out to me, but we're really working our way out of attribution. And anybody who's got a program in effect, who wants to do something, if you have a program in effect, I'd love to entertain doing a subsidy, like where I say, let's do 20,000 or 10,000 pieces of mail, where we pick 20,000 homes, where you have a control, where all your other mediums, your television, your radio, your digital is all being performed. And let's find 20,000 homes that meet the criteria of your clientele that you haven't mailed to before. And let's take out of those 20,000, let's only mail to 10,000 of them. So we do like every other carrier route. We do carrier out 1, we skip carry out 2. We do carry out 3. We skip carry out 4. We do carry out 5, up until you get to 10, and it can be 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, whatever you want. But that way, at the end of 6 months, with all things being equal, if we just compare the results of, let's say we call the carrier routes that we mail to, we shade them in red, and the carrier routes that we don't mail to, we shade them in blue. And like I said, for people who are already running programs, if anybody wants to participate in this, I'll help subsidize the mail for it. That way, after 6 months, we can easily just look back, and it really doesn't matter who gets attribution for it, whether the direct mail made the other mediums do better, or the other mediums made the direct mail do. But it'll be easy to show that after 6 months, if all things being equal, if the only difference between red and the only difference between blue is that red you spent $20,000 in direct mail and did $190,000 extra in revenue than blue, then we can show you that there's not an attribution, but there's a net lift. And I think that's where I'm looking to, because it's an uphill battle for us to try and teach people attribution and get away from instant gratification. But I think in the long run, the right play is that the only thing that you guys as consumers should be concerned about is whether adding a layer to your marketing makes a difference or taking away a layer makes a difference. I hope I don't know if that sounds interesting to anybody or makes sense to anybody. And then one person who I'm really happy to see on here is James Quayle. And I lay this on Tom and Lou at some point, and maybe even Josh Kelly, because, proud to have Josh aboard. But James is bored with the message that is put out on a monthly basis. And, no matter how, and I love you, James. And this is why we're all here, but maybe you can express your frustration and get feedback from people and be able to see whether it's a message or whether it's just something that we have to do. There's no other time, there's no other thing to offer at that time of year.
Thank you, Drew. I see Bill is interested in what you just described. And when we get into the discussion portion, Drew, I'll make sure that we give James some time to, as you suggested there. Let me move on with the introductions here, Drew. Thanks for that information. I'm going to introduce Tom next. As you can see here on the screen, this is Tom Casey. Tom is what we call a third generation SOB, or son of a boss. He started and has sold multiple contracting businesses in multiple states. He's also the creator of the i5 sales system that's created millions and millions in revenue in multiple locations. Tom, I know you're traveling, so hopefully you're in a good spot right now. How are you this morning or this afternoon?
I couldn't be better, my man. Getting ready to jump on a plane back to the United States, but all is good.
All right, we're excited to get your input today in the discussion. I'm going to try to get there as quickly as possible so that we can still get some moments with you. Also, backed by popular demand is the extremely likable Lou Hobaica. Lou, I'm going to ask you to unmute here in just a second, but Lou is the president of Hobaica Services. They're a multi-trade service provider in Phoenix, Arizona. They offer HVAC, plumbing, sewer, drain, electric, security, wine rooms, the list goes on. Lou really knows his stuff. If you've ever interacted with him, he knows stuff that makes people like you and me some money. And on top of that, he's one of the most likable guys you'll ever meet. Lou, how are you doing this afternoon?
Hey, it is this afternoon here in Phoenix, Arizona. Lovely weather. Business is great. Glad to be here and glad to share what I can. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, man. And lastly, for the first time on the event today is Josh Kelly. He's the CEO of Clover Marketing. Josh helped his family grow their family business, Parker & Sons, from $7 million to over $100 million in 14 years. He helped seven-figure businesses get to eight-figure businesses get to 9. And he owns Clover Consulting and runs that with his wife, Laura. Josh, welcome to the Mastermind, man. You ready to rock today?
I am ready, yeah. And Parker & Sons, we'll do just a reference. We just crossed the trailing 12 months. So we're including January to January now, 200 million. And you missed the most important point. So they asked me like, hey, give me a few bullet points on like what you want to say. I'm like, I don't like talking about myself. But the one I did put on there is I am funnier and better looking than Tom Casey. And they just left that out.
Well, that's a given, though, right? I mean, I thought that was pretty much understood, right, Tom?
That's why we're wearing a mask today.
Yeah, cover that thing up, man. All right.
Yeah, this everybody on this place is funnier and better looking than me. So
Well, never. First up is what we call our new mailer review. We're going to take a look at some of the new artwork. Ashley Sanborn here on the team, who I think many of you know, but Ashley is going to go ahead and walk us through. Ashley, you just let me know when you want me to advance through here. And as she does that, as we're going through that, if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have ideas about the mailers that we're going to be looking at here on the screen, we want you to drop those into the chat or raise your Zoom hand, and we'll go ahead and call you on the air and talk about those for a few moments. So Ashley, why don't you go ahead and take it away? Just let me know when to move forward.
Awesome. You can go to the first screen. Thanks, Dave. So yeah, getting started here, a couple designs we laid out here. This first one here, this don't rely on luck this summer to stay cool. Some of this may look familiar to you. We use this kind of refreshed version this year, but this was, you know, one that people were very excited about and got great response from. So we kind of refresh that for you. And then this also is another version, you know, if people aren't necessarily ready to, you know, maybe talk about summer, we have this nice spring version here, which kind of highlights the changing of the seasons on the front here. And on the next slide, Dave, if you don't mind advancing here, the 11.5x6 versions here that some of you use for prospects, but most people are using for their current customers. So there's those. And then we also have a few versions on this fourth slide here coming up, where if you're focusing, you know, if you're strictly a plumber, or if you want to focus on driving calls or booking, you know, your boards and some of those other areas versus just heating and cooling, or your plumbing or electricity. We have some versions that are, you know, really pushing kind of one service as well as some options for you. So as Dave mentioned, we'd love to hear some feedback from you in the chat here, or of course, if you want to follow up with your Best Postcards team directly, we'd love to hear any feedback you have on that.
Ashley, is there any other tie down points on any of these?
Dave, just to quickly reiterate, if you're looking at the back, you know, we do have some kind of standard coupons in there. We are still playing around with that, you know, the 50 off any service, this early bird AC tune up, you know, maybe throwing around some ideas of instead of just putting the straight rebate, you know, your financing offers, or, you know, some sort of free accessory, you know, duct cleaning, or, you know, something around that with a new install as well, rather than just a straight rebate. So we have some other options and ideas for coupons as well that we'll be sharing with you.
Cool. Awesome. Chris Wetmore. Go ahead, Chris.
This might be more for the discussion portion, but one of the things that came up for a couple people was offers on IAQ. It seems like, I know it's bad timing as you have COVID and Andrew just getting over it, but the more I've been out and about, it feels like it's kind of on the tail end of things. So I just had a curiosity. What are people doing? Do you notice a change in how your customers are reacting to IAQ? And some of the offers we've had kind of, you know, you put in that picture of a coronavirus, everybody reacted to it. Is it time to move past that, or is that still a big thing? And you can save that for the discussion portion, but that was one of the things I had on ad copy that I wanted to ask. You know, people are in the field and people, you know, on the other side, what's going on with that?
Yeah, I think that is a good question. If you can all think about that, let me hold that for just a second, because I do know Tom wants to answer some of these questions that we have here in discussion. So Chris, I'll make sure we leave time for that. All right. That's a very good question. I'm curious because Tom also had some feedback on that. Hopefully we can get to him while he's still here. Tom, looks like you're on the plane now. I can see you there, so hopefully we don't lose you here. But we're going to move into the interactive portion of the discussion now. And this is where I want you to be, as I mentioned earlier, as selfish as possible. What I mean by that is I want you to ask narrow questions. Tom and Lou and Drew and the others that are here, to understand what we're about to talk about here in as much detail as necessary for you. We're going to start the conversation with a question around how are you thinking about the preseason, and how are you thinking about preseason? Tom, I'm going to bring you up first since you're on the plane there, and I know that the way you kind of look at this is that we're going to need to create work out of thin air. For example, I know in Florida it's going to turn spring in March-ish, right? It's not full spring, but it's warm enough that you can start to talk to clients now in the preseason. So how do you think about this? How do you think about the preseason, and how are you thinking about the preseason?
I have two companies, one in Connecticut, one in Florida, so I have to think about preseason and preseason. Preseason, we actually, Chris, are in February running an IAQ promo, and we're running right in the face of COVID. And we're playing on the idea of, are you sick and tired of hearing about it? And we use the Italian kind of hand gesture with the headline of forget about it. And it's sort of controversial, funny, attention getting. And on the back, it talks about our way of dealing with it, a specific whole house IAQ approach with a discount for the preseason. Because we're not quite ready for preseason AC. In our own company, we're handling all of our clubs right now, booking those all out in Griffin. So we're getting all of our club members handled first. In Connecticut, we're in a preseason. We're still running heating calls. We still have to have conversation. So we started to let our club members know it's time. And we're also looking at that one mailer where it's like half snow, half sun. It's not too early. It's right around the corner, and offer some preseason equipment discounts for people who we know or might have had some bad news on the AC last year. Now's the time to take advantage. So preseason, IAQ, booking out our clubs, getting ready to, we're going to hit our market hard next month on tune-ups and refresherizes and stuff like that. Preseason, getting early equipment, system discounts, things like that. That's what we're handling in the two different cooling dominant and heating dominant markets.
Lou, what about you? I'm going to move to you next here. How do you think about preseason and pre-preseason in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, so Phoenix, Arizona, we're going to start to heat up here pretty quick. So we look at March. So we're planning for our March preseason. And I mean, when we think about, marketing, whatever products or services we offer, and we're a multi-trade company, everybody has a what, and all your competition has a what. So consumers, whether they're prospects or customers, they have a lot of options. And, we're always sending out marketing. We're communicating with our customers or prospects because we want work, we need the revenue. And I mean, the reality is we need to be our customers' choice when they need us, not when we need them. So that means touching them consistently on the what, but most importantly, the why. Why are we different than everybody else? Why would they want to use us? Being real, likable people, trustworthy, honest, promos, discounts, giving them a reason to use us and being in front of them enough, staying top of mind regularly enough with consistency and being consistent with your brand. So you are their choice when they need you. So we're rolling into our springtime. HVAC is most important, rolling in March, April, May, and we're going to get really hot here in Phoenix. Josh knows that. Lived here for many years, and Parker and Sons. So, I mean, it's our season. So we roll into that. We just want to be the company of choice. And we do that by branding and consistency with our brand, and then promos, discounts, some freebies, specials, being able to get in the door of all the services, but especially this time of year, moving in for the air conditioning portion.
Josh, I'm going to go to you next, but folks here in the room, if you have questions for Tom on anything that he said, or for Lou around how they're viewing it, or if you see things differently, that's the kind of discussion we want. Drop that in the chat or raise your hand here in Zoom, and I'll bring you on here in just a moment. So Josh, I'm going to go to you next here. I'm curious, from your vantage at Clover, what offers do you recommend in preseason and pre-preseason, depending on a cooling or heating climates? If you can just kind of give us some context from your point of view, what do you see resonating? What do you see working?
So let me answer this a little differently, right? Because we can talk about offers, and I'll briefly talk about offers, but I think it's less like preseason. It's less about the offers you make, because it's just difficult. Like here in Phoenix, perfect example, right? No matter how good my offer is, there's just not a lot of people in the market at the time, right? So I have to shift the way that I speak to potential customers, right? So like just generalized offers, yeah, we're going to go into IAQ. We're going to go into, buy a filter, or you could buy a filter, or you could be a filter. If it's still cold, it's hard to talk about heating when it's still cold outside. Then we're going to do like candy's cheaper after Halloween, right? This is the end of season, or an overstock, or whatever gimmick we want to get that we build a really good story around to get people to sway with us. But the truth is, no matter how amazing my offer is, in March, I'm not going to get a lot of new customers. I'm going to get more than most, but I can't drive a ton of customers. It's not realistic. It doesn't mean I don't have goals, though. It doesn't mean we don't get revenue. It just means I have to shift to really focusing on hitting my customer base more, as opposed to trying to generate new customers. So I'm really going to lean into my email campaigns, my text message campaigns, my ringless voicemail, my telemarketing arm, right? My sales recovery, all the stuff that we already have people that know, like, and trust us. I need to lean into those people and pick when they use me. Whereas a demand call, I'm relying on an issue to happen. When you're hitting your own customer base, you can create demand. So that's what we focus on a lot. So it's changed, I shift where I'm really trying to drive the business. And then I hyper focus. If I'm going to go after my customer base, I can't go with install offers and be all that effective. Like, I need to focus on upsells, accessories, cross-selling, turning one customer into two. There's all kinds of systems of doing that. And the only other thing I would say is, like, preseason, so many people forget this, but if you want to hit your goals in summertime, you got to have the calls, you got to have the people too. So this is when we make a hard press for recruiting too. Like Parker and Sons, this year we'll have to, just because of attrition and growth. And we have attrition way lower than, the industry average, but, we'll lose, 5% of our technicians over a year. We have to hire 150 technicians.
Yeah.
Like, you don't wait until June to do that.
Right.
So
Very
long-winded
interesting.
answer.
No, that makes sense. No, that's good. Folks, I want to know if you have questions for Josh or Tom or Lou on their response. And I'm about to ask all of you here in the room a question, and I want you to be engaged here. You know, as we thought about this question and how to kind of tease it out here, normally our Southern contractors right now are entering preseason as early as March, and Northern folks are in the preseason. But curious what the extreme weather that we've had over the past little while, what's that done to all of you? Has it put a monkey wrench in anybody's plans? Do I have any volunteers either here in chat or here in Zoom? If you can raise your hand. Anybody have any feedback on that? Has the weather, the extreme weather, you know, these bomb cyclones or whatever all this stuff is, out here in Southern California where I'm at, the extreme weather means we drop into the 50s. So you can pity me out here. But anybody have any feedback on that? Love to hear any perspectives. Tom, as the others are getting ready, and I know we're about to lose you soon, Tom Casey, you have any insight on that? Has that done anything to you?
Yeah, it's required us to have a little bit different discussion, kind of like exactly what Josh was saying. How are we going to talk to our customers? Because no one is certainly going to be looking for anything AC related. It's still snow on the ground and frigid record cold temperatures. So we're continuing to push that we're available for heating service. And we're still pushing a lot of heating through direct mail and email and everything else. But with our customer base, we can start to tease out exactly what Josh said. We ran a campaign that was basically, when's the best time to buy Christmas decorations? January 2nd. And so now we can run another one, you know, as the season goes on. When's the best time to do it? And to our own customer base to stimulate them that, listen, we're giving you the first crack at this. It's time for you to step up, and understanding that nobody wants to buy a new AC. That's part of the psyche too. Is I think Josh hit it, Lou hit it. In March, no one's thinking AC in Phoenix or Florida or anyplace else until it's a hot day. Then they're thinking about it. So how do we stimulate that with a question or a headline or an offer? Or I guess for me, it's the stacking of all the things together. The mail that we send out, the newsletters we send out, then all the individual levers we pull to get people thinking, because seldom does the public do what's in their best interest, right? We should all eat better. We should all do a lot of things differently than we do, but we don't until there's an key to having a great customer base is how do I stimulate their thinking because of that trust to give me a chance to tell my story, have a conversation, get them ahead of the line. And for us, and especially in Connecticut right now, is so that we can get them all taken care of so that when it turns into silly season, we can go get more customers. So we already handled our customers. We've already taken care of them. They were there first. And now we can go after more aggressively after new customers.
I see Bill here saying, Bill, for you and your crew, it's just a normal winter here so far. That's interesting. So nobody here on the call then really has been influenced by any of the extreme weather. Let me know in the chat. I'm going to give you another second, or raise your hand if anybody has anything to say on that. But that's interesting, and that's very helpful feedback. Looks like everybody's okay. That's good. Let's see. Lori says, we had a snowstorm here in central Illinois, which shut us down for 2 days. With all the snowfall, we're looking at lots of sump pumps and flood prevention. Okay. That's good. Anybody else? I'll go ahead and read that if you're still typing it in. Yeah, no, I saw Chris Z, I saw you waving your hand. You want to unmute yourself if you want, if you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we're exterior contractors. We're up in Salem, Massachusetts. So we had a two-foot snowstorm, you know, a week and a half ago. So it affects us in all directions. But, you know, like a lot of these guys have been saying, you know, we lean heavily on our database this time of the year anyways. So it's something that we are used to, unfortunately. And like today we discussed what's our plan to make up ground. So we have occasionally we'll have a year like this where we have a lot of snow and cold, and it affects our installations and sales. But, you know, the work's going to get done within this year. So we just got a plan to execute more business in a shorter period of time, which we're preparing to do. So yes, it does affect us. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
And I see Lou bragging there about beautiful weather in Phoenix. Same here as in Southern California as you, Lou. We're looking pretty over here. Let's see. Eva says we had 2 days also last week in Columbus and Dayton, Ohio. It made servicing the number of calls on those days, but the team pitched in to add in weekends to catch up. So I guess it made it difficult to service those calls is what you mean there, but the team pitched in to get it done. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so we are HVAC service, plumbing service in Connecticut as well, and recently into the Best Postcard program. But what we saw with the cold snaps over the last few weeks is just records amount of calls coming in. And it really wasn't that we couldn't service it. We found that a lot of other contractors were not fulfilling their duties of kind of getting back to their customers. They didn't have the capacity, whether it's COVID or what it was. So we found that, we're picking up the phone because we have the capacity. And everybody was saying, oh, my guy won't pick up, my guy won't pick up, my guy won't pick up, whether it's staffing issues or whatever it is. So we found a heavier presence during the cold snap because a lot of people just were let down by their current provider.
Interesting. Well, that's interesting to know, John. I'm gonna give Tom a word here since he's about to fly there in his private jet. Tom, thanks for being here with us today. You want to say a final goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, one thing I would say, and I think it's going to segue to maybe another topic, is everyone's sleeping, like John just said, on their own customer base. It's the time to get their customers. But with the weather, one of the things I've seen is some people are sleeping on the supply chain because they're into one mode, heating mode. They're not thinking about the next season. Therefore, if you're the early bird and you start striking, you can lock up the equipment deals, the flex deals, the refrigerant deals. So it is not too early to start thinking about supply chain for spring and making your deals now and negotiating terms to pay for them later. That way, what we're seeing in Florida specifically is we got our stuff in the barn, which means we're the guys selling the water heaters, the IAQ products, the duct jobs, the systems, because everyone else is scrambling. And so if you have that communication to your customer base as well, and then once you take care of them, you'll have it for the prospects. But think supply chain issues in the same time too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. And that's a good segue into our next question here. Fly safely, Tom. See you soon here in these States. This next topic, which Tom just teased up here for us, is something that we see impacting nearly all industries. And we touched it in, let's see, our December Mastermind. But if anything, it seems like it might be getting a little worse. And so we want to kind of get some input from all of you. Since we're in preseason, pre-season, the question is, how do the supply chain issues impact your overall strategy? How are you thinking about supply chain right now? And how is that influencing your marketing? So I'm going to go first to you, Lou, and then to you, Josh, just to get some insight here. What we hear is it's still rather rampant everywhere. And so I want to know either in the chat or go ahead and raise your hand in Zoom. We want to know kind of how that's impacting you. And then we've got a specific question for you around how we might be able to help on the marketing side. So Lou, Hobaica, I'm going to start with you. How's this looking?
Yeah, supply chain's a serious issue and it's not going away. It's just going to get worse in 2022. We're already experiencing major supply issues, equipment, flex duct, for instance. There is no flex duct in Phoenix, Arizona. It's like, if you don't have it, you're not going to get the job. So we have beefed up our inventory 500% from where we would typically keep inventory levels at, because we used to be able to get same day, next day, whatever we needed, not a problem. And we win jobs all the time because we're the guys that have it. So you just got to be smart. You got to get what you can and have what you need and what you're going to need in the future. Stock up. Yeah. It's hard to get equipment, especially if you're talking, the high-end inverter type stuff, the chip problem. It can take 2, 3, 4 months to be able to get equipment. So just get it on hand. Have your flex duct in stock and the other installation supplies, plumbing, electrical. Get it in stock what you typically use, because your competitor probably won't have it and you're the guy that'll have it, so you'll get the job.
Where did you say 500%? Is that what I heard you say?
500%. Yeah.
Wow.
500%.
Let me see if I can get Tom, Josh, before he leaves. Tom, I'm curious if someone here on the call is hearing that 500% saying, gee, I got to come up with a bunch of cash. Yeah. What's your advice on how to think about doing what Lou just described here? How would you go about acquiring this inventory?
I would, which we did, we negotiated terms, 30, 60, 90, 120, placed a very large factory order with a couple of different suppliers and just told them we'll pay over time. We also negotiated a discount off of that as well. So we have discount and terms, and we can sell at the increased, the new price to increase the margin. The rationale was we're going to have all the space for inventory, so that's why.
And as always,
all right. I see them. I see them giving Tom a difficult time there. Tom, I see your note. Bye, Tom. He says, negotiate your deals now. Thank you, Tom. Negotiate your deals now before more price increases, and then sell based on the new higher pricing to increase your gross profit dollars. Be a hoarder if possible on common stuff. A good question here from Chris, back to you, Lou, and then Josh, I'm going to bring you on. Lou, are you promoting the fact that you have equipment in stock? Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, it's a little difficult. I mean, with our customer base, we do, but if you're looking for picking up additional business, your customer or prospect isn't going to know that there's a supply chain stock issue until their guy can't do it. So at that point, you just got to be the guy that's in front of them, or you have to have touched them enough to be, familiar enough with them to be able to have that opportunity.
Josh, what about you? What are you seeing? And any advice or insight for the group on this question of supply chain?
Yeah, no, I mean, so not only, we own, I guess it was no owned by the wrench group, but, we have Parker and Sons, but we really ran off a JIT system. So just in time, we didn't really carry inventory. It was non-existent. Now we do. Now, I mean, we bought I want to say we bought 30 pallets worth of Freon. We bought over $1 million worth of Flex, just over the top ridiculous. And the thought process is if we don't use it, we could just sell it. They say there's no Flex in Phoenix, and it's right. And it's because people like us and like Lou bought it all. If you're chucking a truck and you're working on your house, it's pretty hard to get Flex right now. It just is. You have to buy it from Parker and Sons for a pretty big markup. And I know that's kind of bullying people, but we can do it. So we do it. In general, there's a lot of ways to set this up. I'm not a fan of carrying inventory. Right now, you have to. It is what it is. And in general, I'm really normally a big fan of having 1 to 2 vendors and having really strong relationship with them and having them run through all of them. And we're still kind of doing that. But our shift is we don't sell equipment specifically. We don't sell what we want to sell. We sell what we can buy. You know what I mean? There was a time, we sell mainly ICP day and night, and then we're in a bunch of Costco's. We sell Lennox as well. And this is not just here in Phoenix with Parker and Sons, but, I help Tom Casey, right? And I help him with operations and marketing, right? I help companies across the United States grow their businesses. And people that were, hey, I love Carrier, I'm a Carrier dealer. It's not anymore. Now you love whoever has supply that morning. So I reach out every morning. I get an active inventory, what it is, and I have them reserve it for me. And I sell whatever I could get my hands on. Things that I would never sell before, Bosch equipment. I even know Bosch made equipment. They made hand drills. I was unaware until a year and a half ago. Now we sell Bosch, not constantly, but that's what we get our hands on. That's what we sell. So we're doing that kind of across the board. Another big thing is vehicles, right? A lot of people aren't talking about it. It's so hard to get vehicles right now. We have to add 100 trucks. More, I forget what the exact order is, but I think we're looking for 100 trucks. We placed a 100 truck order with 5 different vendors. Whoever brings it in, brings it in.
Wow.
And you don't have to buy 100, obviously, but buy from 5 people. Don't put a deposit on it. If it comes in, trust me, they're not going to be upset with you if you say, hey, sell it to someone else. They're going to end up getting more money. They're going to be perfectly fine with it. You're not going to get stuck with it. But the thought process, if we put 100 with 5 different orders, right? This guy will bring in 10, this guy will bring in 20, this guy will be 30. No one's delivering me 100 trucks right now. It's just not happening. And I still need to get to 100 trucks. So I'm just starting to order stuff from a bunch of people, and I would never do that.
As we were preparing for the meeting, we have a question for all of you based on this topic that I'd love to hear your input on. And then Hannah, I see your comment there, but this is a question for the group here. Mentioning supply chain issues in the direct mail, in the print, it's kind of like Chris's question here a second ago, isn't something that we've really done. And so we're curious, would it be useful or helpful to have a supply chain piece? When we were meeting about this earlier, the team was saying, if this is something that would be useful to all of you, let us know here in the chat or in Zoom, and the team would be able to perhaps whip something up for March or April if that would be useful to you. So I'd love for a couple of you to either drop that in the chat or to raise your hand. Lou, since you kind of had some feedback on that, I'm going to go ahead and ask you that question. If there was a piece that had that kind of angle to it, do you think it would be useful? Or like you said, the customer doesn't really care or know, I guess. So does it make a difference?
Yeah, I definitely think it makes a difference. And like I said, we got to be there when they have this issue and they can't get their normal guy to get it done. So we have done that on social media and been successful there. I have not sent a mail piece out identifying that, but yeah, I think it would be beneficial.
Okay. And I know, Ashley, it sounds like you have an example. Maybe we can send that out after the event. Is this something that we've done, Ashley Sanborn?
I have had, yes, one client do it. And Dave, I'm not sure if since I'm a co-host, if you want me to share my screen, I do have it kind of handy right here if you want me to.
If you do have it on your screen, go ahead. Let's bring it up. And while you're doing that, let me read Hannah's note here. Hannah says, from a marketing standpoint, we've made an infographic to share on social media to bring more awareness on the price increases of specific things like PVC, copper, tankless water heaters, fuel, etc. So that's good info to know. So yeah, tell us what we're seeing here, Ash.
Yeah, so this is one a client of ours has run. Pretty straightforward, of course, as you know, I think I think the one thing to highlight here is you want to be mindful of what your competitors in your market are doing. So in this area in particular, saying that you're installing it within a week is fantastic. Maybe in some markets, lose market, or, I know Tom offers same day, next day. So, obviously you want to be mindful of what the competitors are putting out there. So if you are going to do this, you're not shooting yourself in the foot where they maybe see something from your competitor where they can do it in less than a week. So that would be my comment on this one in particular.
Chris Wetmore, go ahead.
Like, I could just tell you from the homeowner side, like, I know, I was the advertising side. You guys are always looking from the contractor side. As a homeowner, I could tell you how important it is, because it's getting harder and harder to get things done in my house. And something like that would move. Like, I ordered a front door, a new front door 6 months ago, still waiting on it. It's nothing that fancy, and it goes across the board on everything that we do. It just seems like it's taking longer and longer. And, these days, I feel like people have money, and one of the biggest issues is finding a way to spend it, and finding people that have spent people equipment or service or siding or whatever it is that you're selling to be able to do it. So I think it's a pretty big, going to be an important one going into this year.
Can I ask a question for you, Chris, real quick?
Yeah.
Because I think it's relative, because I'm justifying in my head, and like, I'm a marketing and operations guy, right? The flaw I have with this concept is like, they don't realize there's a supply issue problem until they've already started to do business with somebody, right? Like, so you specifically, like, you had no idea there was a door shortage until you went to a company and ordered a door and you were already locked in.
Yep.
Have you switched and looked at other door companies knowing that takes 6 months?
Yeah, I've tried calling around, finding 2 other people, and same problem. We ordered a dresser, for example. My daughter, we got a new bedroom set.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys know Jordan's Furniture. Bought it from there and said, okay, it'll be in 6 weeks. Then it was 8 weeks. Then it was 4 months. And we finally got the call. So let's see, her birthday is in May. We finally got the email saying, hey, it's open, it's ready. And in the meantime, we've shopped around at 3 other places, but we can't find any, she's particular and a pain in the butt. But number 2 is we didn't find, they're having the same issues unless you pick up, hey, this one's in stock. We have this right now. And I said, hey, honey, take this one, but she didn't want it. But regardless, we still had to go shop around after that. After the fact, we have looked, and it's the same problem everywhere, Make sense?
Yeah.
Anybody else have any feedback on that? Love to hear that, if anyone else has feedback on that. And Chris, I'm going to give some airtime to the question that you raised earlier, so let me know if I mangle this and go ahead and restate it. But I think what you were saying is, in the past few months, it feels like people are ready to put COVID kind of in the rearview mirror. And so has anybody here in the group noticed a change in their IAQ sales? Do you notice a difference in how people are reacting to these sales pitches? First of all, do you see people wanting to put this in the rearview mirror? I think the answer is yes, but what are you saying? And what are some of the strategies out there for getting in the home to sell IAQ? So just love to hear some feedback on that. And Chris, if I mangled that question, please let me know and restate that. But is that kind of the gist of what you were looking to get info on?
Yeah, close enough, buddy.
Okay, good. What perspective do you all have here in the group on that? Let me go to you first, Lou, just get some additional thoughts from you on this. What are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, so we're staying away from the whole COVID concept. We don't communicate it. It's got so much baggage, a lot of negative baggage, brings a lot of negative emotions. So we don't even go down that route. We keep our branding consistent, a simple message, an opportunity to get in the home, and then, create the experience that, we can show our customers or, prospects and be able to offer them products and services. But, nothing COVID related. There's just, people don't know what to believe. There's so much inconsistency, and they're all confused. So it's a lot of negative emotion, bad baggage.
Josh, what's your view on this? Let's talk about using COVID in our marketing. How do you view that?
So I'm on the same page as Lou. Like, I don't really like using COVID in forward-facing, customer-facing marketing. However, I do lean into COVID in the house, right? It's a great upselling tool. And right now, you're 100% right. It's starting to phase out, especially depending where you're at. Here in Phoenix, like, people have been wearing a mask for a year. You know what I mean? People aren't really paying much attention to it, but everyone still feels that pain from when it first happened. So we're kind of transitioning into, like, not that this protects against COVID. Like, listen, this stuff happens. If you have an air scrubber at your house, it doesn't happen to you. Like, not only are you going to be prevented from this going to be an issue again, but prevents from other sicknesses. It lowers the amount of dust, literally cleans the house while you sleep. How amazing is that? You know, and then we go into the whole, you could either buy a filter or be a filter, and we really push that. But I think COVID still plays, but it can't be like, you're not going to get COVID on this. It has to be like, listen, like, you don't have to worry about it again. It's not fixing like now, you're fixing the future pacing.
Ashley, I know is this the piece that Tom mentioned where they did talk about COVID? Can you just tell us what we're seeing here on the screen?
Yes, it is. So Tom is running this and another piece I'll show up. He's actually running a test with both of the creatives to see kind of how the results vary there. But again, I think similar to what Josh mentioned, you know, really not specifically calling out COVID, well, the other one I think does, but, you know, really the results you can get or how that affects your home and your family by putting in these air purifiers and whatnot. So here's one version that he is running. And then, yeah, this is the other one that's a little more in your face. So he is running this for both customers and prospects. So I'm sure, you know, we'll have some results to share with you in the near future.
Very good. That's helpful. Bill says we've had most luck selling IAQ during maintenance and installations. Okay, makes sense. So with that, Josh, I want to give you an opportunity to say some closing words to everybody. Josh, go ahead.
Closing words are from me, apparently. All right.
You're first up. I'm going to give a couple people. Go ahead.
No, what I would say is, you know, in our industry in general, like, people seem to take their foot off the gas in the slow season. They kind of accept, you know, things aren't working as well. And you just can't do that and be successful and really play at a high level. Like, the difference between great contractors and decent contractors is, come February or March, we go get the business. We drive anyway, and we have to figure it out. We're pulling levers every day. When the board's empty tomorrow, we don't sit and wait for the phone calls to come in. So just keep that in mind. Always be pulling levers. Always reach out to your customer base. This is the time we have to drive. Here in Phoenix, especially, like, pretty much anyone can make money in the summertime. It's the real contractors that make money every single month. So keep your foot on the gas.
Keep your foot on the gas. That's the word from Josh. What about you, Lou? What are your thoughts for everybody before we close?
Yeah, just focus on your brand, you know, determine who you are and be consistent with your brand and communicate your why, because everybody has the same what's that you have to offer. So communicate your why consistently. Keep your message really simple, right? Just get in the home. Then you can do your thing and, you know, confuse your prospect or your customer, which will happen. Just keep your message simple, get in the home.
Awesome. Thank you all for attending today. Thank you for your participation. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Please give us those feedback here in the survey that's going to be coming to you in email. We want to improve this. Thank you, Bill. It was good seeing you here. Julie, thank you. I hope today was helpful to you. And for the rest of you, have a wonderful rest of the day. Stay healthy, everyone, and we'll be in touch very, very soon. Thanks, everybody.